Hey guys, welcome back to the Ghost and Friends YouTube channel. Once again, joined by my new friend Chris, Coach Hayes. How we doing tonight, Chris?
Cord, I'm doing great, buddy. I'm glad you're having me back on the show. It was good talking with you last week, and looking forward to talking some more shop tonight after that big game Saturday.
Absolutely. Well, once again, congratulations on a big win for Georgia. Set off the air. Obviously, I think the college football world was put on notice that it is still a Kirby Smart-led team, and they still have that capability on defense that not many do have. But we have talked about that game all week. You probably looked at a lot of film on that, and so that first half for Texas. Okay, we're going to talk a little about the Texas offense for a moment. First half for Texas was a struggle, to say the least. Didn't have a lot of time to throw the ball, didn't protect the ball, didn't run the ball, obviously, very well at all. Nothing really went well for Texas in the first half. And so on a scale of 1 to 10, how much did that surprise you, seeing Texas struggle, even though in the back of your mind, like, what type of defense Georgia can play, what type of team they can show up with? Did it surprise you a lot to see Texas just struggle that much in the first half?
It did. It honestly did, because as you know, on the show this past week with you before they played, I'm a big fan of Sark, and I really like the way he moves people around and he distributes the football to his playmakers. And I think when you have a situation, unfortunately, that's dictated by the fact that the defense was playing so well, they were causing a lot of havoc. They were making the windows of time speed up for the quarterbacks to get the ball out quicker. I think that was the whole pace of the game that changed in the first half, because they felt like they were having to play hurry up or catch up, because y'all did give it to Georgia a lot opportunistically on the plus side of the field. I mean, I felt like we were playing on y'all's side of the 50 for pretty much the entire first half. And when you're playing that way, a lot of times that will dictate what you're wanting to settle in and comfortably want to do offensively. All of a sudden you feel like you're playing catch up, because you're constantly giving the ball back to to Georgia. Like I said, on the plus side of the field. So every time you're getting the football back, the offense is scored. So it's 7-0, 10-0, 17-0, and it just changes in what you're trying to do offensively. But because we did have a better game defensively, and I'm telling you, we had to bring it out there and show up and show out, which, that's actually more surprising to me, honestly, because I was really worried that we were actually, kind of had hit a wall defensively from our secondary standpoint. But with our front seven creating the havoc that they did, I think that changed the pace of play, which caused sort of a disruption in the flow of your quarterbacks getting into a rhythm and getting the ball distributed out to those playmakers in space that Sark likes to do.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, we're so accustomed to seeing Texas wide receivers catch the ball in an open space, being able to use their quickness, their elusiveness,
right?
Creating that yak yards that that everybody likes as an offensive guy.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't see much of that. There wasn't a lot of space. Georgia seemed to always have leverage on the quicks, the hots, the RPO looks. You guys were very, very well prepared for that offense. And now, before we kind of get into a little bit of scheme and regarding what Texas was trying to do with Georgia, did you think it was a good move, a silly move? What type of move did you think it was when Steve Sarkisian moved to Arch Manning in mid to late second quarter?
Yeah, I was honestly very surprised. I had actually watched a couple of your shows that week after I had been on your show with you. And I remember actually asking a question in your chat, and I kind of got sort of, my hand slapped for saying anything about a quarterback controversy, because really, at that point in time, Ewers was, to me, y'all's QB1 in what he had shown. And Arch had done a really good job of coming in and doing his job while, Ewers was gone. But I think that's the problem that you have when you have just that sample size of this game where the defense logistically showed up and caused a lot of different disruptions. I kind of agree with Sark going to probably Manning, but I wouldn't have done it at the time he did it. I would have probably said, listen, this is yours for the half. Let him fight it out. Let him try to get into a rhythm. and then maybe it might be Manning coming in, the beginning of the second half and seeing what he could do to change things up. But I think because you brought Manning in, it actually ended up helping, so that after halftime, it was sort of like, hey, we've got to do something that's just going to change the flow of the game, that might just, sort of flush some things to get, there's just a opportunistic situation there for another person to come in and see if they can, light a spark.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody's mental clock, as we said, was a little bit sped up, including Coach Sark's. Everything, just seemed like we were really trying to play catch up, and we were very, very uncomfortable being in the spot that we were in. And so, you could definitely tell Quinn, is going through his progressions probably a little bit too quickly when he had time. Worried about, obviously Georgia getting to him. The double mug A gap drop back into the cover two with a corner coming off the boundary side. That's sexy, man. Like, there's no other way to say that. From a coaching standpoint, that was insanely beautiful to watch. From a fan of the University of Texas and primarily Quinn Ewers, that was hell to watch. Happened right in front of me. You could see the blitz coming. Obviously, to Quinn's blind side, never a chance. Never a chance there. Yep. And so, what type of defensive mind you're up against. It's not like that's the only set or look that we've seen get a lot of highlighted coverage from Kirby's game plan on Sunday. He's had multiple different plays, just A-plus plan, A-plus scheme. And so I definitely think Sark threw up a little bit of a stinker. I don't know if you would agree. Kirby had the upper hand big time, and it's okay to call it what it is. Do you agree in that regard?
Well, I'm going to say this. It is a little bit like poker, because you can sit there and prep for formational situations, because if we get trips 3x1, or if we get Ricky or Lucy sets where we have connected H-backs to the line of scrimmage out of trips, and we know that they want to run RPO game one way or the other, you can call something to it because you feel like you've got a tendency, but sometimes that doesn't happen. And what I felt like it happened is we did a good job of mixing our zone and our man coverages. We ran a lot of 2-man. We did go cover 2 to the boundary a lot. That's what you saw, where it looked like we were in man. Ewers thought it was man. He ended up throwing into a cover 2 low corner, playing the flat, and they ended up bracketing and make that pick. I just think it was one of those things where we played the cards right at different times. And just like I said, from a scheme standpoint, I think our tendencies fit what Texas was wanting to do, instead of it being, hey, we want to run this blitz to this type of formation, and hey, they've got something to counter that, because they realize, hey, we're gonna show that tendency to this, they're gonna bring this, so we've got to be able to check at the line of scrimmage and change it and go somewhere else with it. And that comes down to competent quarterback play, being able to read the line of scrimmage pre-snap wise, and being able to say, okay, here's where they're coming from, we got to change something up and go the other direction with it. So it did help too. I'm not going to lie. This is something that I wasn't really aware of, but Warren Brinson, one of our best defensive tackles, and Mikael Williams, obviously high NFL draft stock, draft pick, was back to full health. And we had 2 guys that we hadn't seen play since probably, Mikael since Clemson, and Warren, both of them since Clemson. They both got hurt in the Clemson game. So, I mean, they've been out for almost 6 weeks. To see them come back and play healthy too, that definitely strengthened what we were being able to do up with our front seven, bringing a lot of different just dynamic blitzes. And then when we would pull out zone blitz and go, like I said, zone to one side and being man on the other side, or matching on the other side, it was really cool to see. And I agree. I think we just we called the bluffs and were able to, have good defensive stands when we needed them.
Yeah, and that's the thing with 2 guys and 2 dynamic players, as you mentioned, coming back and being fully ready to go in a type of game like that. I wish they would have waited a week, or 2 weeks, to be honest with you. But it's not just like, hey, these are 2 really big, healthy bodies that we can put out there. It's different than having 2, you guys have 5-star defensive linemen in every cycle. It's different than having, a freshman get out there who's got really great potential. It's guys that know the scheme, that you have the capability of running that type of dynamic blitz with. You have the ability to have them zone blitz and to, you trust those guys to be in the right spots, to know that their responsibilities are. And so definitely an added boost for Kirby's defense. I feel like it was kind of quiet, about those 2 guys returning. Did Ratledge play in this game? Did he suit up I saw him suited up for the offensive line, but I didn't know if he, yeah, no doubt, my man.
Yeah. They Well, like I said, with that being said, that being rotational, they were getting the primary plays going on as well. Tate Ratledge did not. He suited up, and I think he went through drills just to see what he could do. But I think from what I saw, he looked really solid. So I think with 2 weeks off, getting prepared for Florida, he'll probably be back for the cocktail party. So I think that he was probably someone that we could have put in an emergency. But it's been really nice to see our guard play and our center play has been our staple up front. Our tackle play has been really susceptible, and I thought Texas's front really did a good job. They challenged our tackles a lot. There was a lot of times Carson was being flushed out of the pocket as well. So I was impressed defensively with what Texas was giving us pressure wise. But as far as bringing Tate back in, that'll definitely help rotate us back into a more solid front five.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, obviously a fantastic player. Georgia seems to be getting healthy at a really good time. So good for you, Georgia guys out there.
Mm-hmm.
And also appreciate any Georgia guys in here listening and watching Coach Hayes do his thing. He's always a great guest. Throw a like on the video, please. Real easy, quick to do. Takes a couple seconds. Coach deserves a little bit of love on this video. Now, talking about Quinn, okay, and now I'm not trying to speculate, man, but I do have to ask. Do you think Quinn is injured? Does Quinn look hurt to you? I'll go through the way I think about it real quick. All season long we've watched this Texas team up in Michigan. We had a couple of shots down the field in that game, but outside of that, we're really not attacking downfield. And then obviously Quinn was hurt against UTSA and missed the ULM and Mississippi State games.
Mm-hmm.
Quinn comes back against Oklahoma and Georgia. There's not really many attempts downfield. Okay. And Sarkisian
Right.
in previous years, we've seen him attack downfield. Obviously thinking about the 2020 Bama team, even 2021 Texas, they went downfield often. 2022 Texas downfield often.
Mm-hmm.
Quinn averaged 10 yards per attempt in 2022. He's down to 6 yards per attempt in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
I love Quinn and would love for him to be healthy, love for him to be the guy. But because of what I'm seeing schematically out of Sark and out of Texas and where we're throwing the ball, it's never really been just like a big ball control offense and let's just,
Right.
Not take our chances.
Right.
Well, then you see Arch Manning come in, play the ULM game, play the Mississippi State game, and he's bombing the ball downfield. And so that even more so makes me really, and I hate to do it as a Longhorn fan, and I'm not, like I said, I hate to speculate, but like that really makes me feel like Quinn is probably nowhere close to healthy.
I have to agree with you on that. I think there's two people that really was hurting a little bit, and that's another is Isaiah Bond. I think he wasn't fully healthy either, even though I know he caught that one touchdown pass. I just think that he was not 100%. And you got guys that want to play because it is a big game. It is something that they want to be a part of. I mean, you want to be able to go out there and shine in that kind of spotlight in prime time, but unfortunately, you're limited when you're doing those kinds of things. I remember, JT Daniels when he had that oblique injury before the whole controversy we had where Stetson Bennett coming in, he couldn't throw the ball the way he wanted to, even though we knew we were not throwing the ball vertically. We seemed to be throwing a lot more screens, a lot more check downs, a lot of RPO stuff, quick game, 90-step, what I call 3-step game. 90 protection. But, I see that same thing with him as well. But, because we were bringing a lot of pressure, as you and I talked pre-show, I think that was speeding up his windows too. So all of a sudden, when you did get a good, and I like Kelvin Banks, I thought it was awesome watching him going against McKell in a lot of different pass pro situations. It was good on good. He took on Jalen Walker. He took on McKell. I thought he did a jam up job on that left-hand side, by the way, watching film on him. But anyhow, going back to what we were talking about with Quinn is because of those things. I don't know why they're not looking to press vertically, and if they're not, it's because he can't throw the football. Then unfortunately, you can't put him out there. I mean, you need to put somebody out there that is 100% that can obviously start stretching the field for you, and that comes with just working good pockets, keeping those 4-second windows alive, and being able to stretch the ball vertically. And I just don't think you got time to do that. So it makes every Texas fan who loves their team question offensively where they're at now. I just think you played a hell of a defense. If Georgia played like they're capable of playing defensively, you're not going to see that all year long. I think things will change as time goes on, but it comes down to whatever the defense gives you. You've got to be able to accept that and figure out ways to get around it. And unfortunately for Saturday night, it just wasn't really happening for both of them at any given time.
Yeah, no doubt. And there's no doubt that some Texas fans are overreacting to one loss against Georgia. And the same thing I told you before we jumped on the air. I mean, if we're going to lose a game on this schedule, if we're going to lose to a team on this schedule, like this was a game that I had predicted as a loss before, the season started. I had Texas going 11-1, losing to a good Georgia team. I expected, that type of defense. When you talk about the injuries that you've had, and then last week, it wasn't like that you really played bad defense against Mississippi State. It's kind of like John and you have said, y'all were kind of tinkering around there in that second half and kind of let Mississippi State, put up some points that they might not have if you were really, really trying to limit them offensively there in the second half. But, when I'm not trying to be a guy that overreacts by asking questions about Quinn, it's just schematically, like I just seeing him against Oklahoma, they were so bad offensively. We really didn't have to have Quinn force anything. And so I kind of was like, we're not trying to show anything that any of our looks, maybe some double moves, whatever concepts we might have ready. We didn't want to show Kirby any of that. And it's just, and then when we do try to attack down the field, it seems like every single attempt is underthrown. And so I really hope Quinn is healthy, man. I hope he figures it out. I know that it's more than just as I said last night on Mr. Myrick's show, which again, thank you for having me, Dave. Quinn has a massive arm, man. And we've seen a lot of max protect sets out of Sarkisian and him just attacking downfield with Xavier Worthy. And do we have a guy that might be as elite of a playmaker as Isaiah Worthy on this team? Right now, it doesn't look like we do. And now, again, shout out to Isaiah Bond. We need that guy to be healthy. Hope everything's going well with him. It's a high ankle sprain from everything I hear. And so, that's tough, especially on a 1 week turnaround to come back and be effective on a high ankle sprain. And so, that hopefully doesn't linger and bother Isaiah too long. But yeah, back to the point is, these guys are so fast. They're not the biggest guys, but there's a lot of different ways, in my opinion, that Sark would have these guys schemed up to be open downfield. If we could get them the ball. And so I hope that we figure out, Quinn figures out the health issue. We get him back 100%, because that's kind of that next level to unlocking, playing offense against a really good team like Georgia. Y'all sat on everything short, didn't really respect it. Texas to even take shots to go downfield.
And I feel like that's happened to us a lot too. Reciprocation of that is it's happened to us a lot too offensively. I feel like a lot of teams are sitting tight in the box. They're not respecting anything vertical because they expect us to be throwing a lot of stuff lateral, quick RPO type stuff. And so they're able to sit in the box, have 7 to 8 watching the run as well as, and then be able to attack our lateral offensive gameplay in that regard as well. My thing is that if, to me, y'all are going to go as far as Ewers takes you. I know Arch Manning seems to be kind of the hype train of, hey, he brings in a different spark. But as far as the experience that Ewers brings, you can't beat the experience of what he's going to be able to bring to the table. It just comes down to the fact, is he physically 100%? If he is physically 100%, I think you're going to see changes, especially even this week against Vandy. I know there's all sort of weird demons everybody's wanting to make against Vandy because of what they're doing this year. And obviously the stat line and the history I hear about Texas and Vanderbilt, which is strangely odd, but still, I mean, it's 2024. We're not playing back in the 70s now with stat lines. So I don't really look at that kind of stuff. I think that's for other people to worry about. But, it's one of those things. If he goes out there and you've got to start calling up plays and dialing up plays to put him in those situations, just like what we were talking about with Kirby and the defense against Mississippi State. Sometimes you got to put them in situations that maybe might make them a little uncomfortable and see what they do, see if they pull the trigger, see if they make the right check out of what you're doing, and they respond to it. So it just takes one game the next week for you to go out there and have a good game, and then all of a sudden everybody's saying, you know what, we're going to be okay.
Yeah, man, that really is it. Appreciate you being here, Cody. Stopping by. And that's the thing, man. College football fans are so reactionary. And, a lot of us are still living in the world where there is no 12-team college football playoff. You had maybe one mulligan at most. Sometimes you can win 12 ball games down there in Tallahassee and not make the playoffs that way. And so, maybe a little bit of PTSD from past years, but I mean, it's one loss. You gotta rinse it and move on, especially in this conference. You're talking about a Vanderbilt team that's been a little bit surprising. Understatement there. Vandy's been great, man. Great for the conference, great for the sport.
Right.
When you look at Texas and Vanderbilt, do you expect Texas to handle Vandy, maybe flirt with covering that pretty big spread that's been put on this game?
Yeah, I think they will. I know Vandy has been sort of that surprise team this year because of how beat down they've been every year, it seems, for the past almost 2 or 3 decades, honestly. But of course, in Kirby's, first year in 2016, they beat us at home that year too. So I mean, they are a team that can show up and surprise, but they tend to make that highlight reel about once every 3 or 4 years. And I think this year the Alabama win was their big highlight reel. I do think their quarterback is the real deal. I think they're playing solid defense, but Nashville is a very easy, it should be an easy place to play in. That stadium typically, I mean, it carries very little capacity, and typically there's more people there from the visiting team than there is the home team. But because of the hype of what they're doing this year, I'm sure they're going to show up to show out. But I think Texas will do their business there and come out with a win. I wasn't sure of the spread though. Cord, what's the spread on it?
I think it opened up at 19.5, pretty quickly dropped down to 17.5.
Yeah, I could see I could see a 3-score win there in Nashville. But like I said, it comes out to execution, and it's tough too because we're dealing with the same thing. Ra Thomas being let go at the beginning of the season, Colby Young now suspended for his situation. The chemistry with our offense has been so tough because every week you feel like as a quarterback you're going out there and you've got a new 3 or 4 that you're trying to throw to. And I know the same thing's happening right now at Texas with Isaiah hurt, and I know they're trying to bring in Ryan Wingo to do some things because I think he's your next big playmaker. But I do think you have a solid core of about 5 receivers, and even with Isaiah down right now with the injury, I still think Sark can distribute the football out to at least 3, and you've got playmaking running backs that can catch the ball in the backfield too, as well. I think he does a great job with that too. So I think they will. I think they'll go into Vandy and take care of business, and hopefully give those Texas fans a little bit of just a feeling of just sort of breath of fresh air that, hey, we are okay, we're going to be fine. And you just got to go out and execute. And it's the same thing with us. We do it every week. I'm sitting there looking, okay, defense looks good against you guys. Now let's see what our offense does when we go to Jacksonville. Same principle.
Absolutely. And, I'm sure hoping you're right there, Coach. Hope we kind of push them around. Do you expect the Texas offensive line to kind of have maybe not a prove it game? I think most people do understand they're, a pretty dang good group. But definitely got stepped on a little bit last week by that Georgia front seven, giving up 7 sacks after having conceded 6, in the previous 6 games before. I expect really big things out of the offensive line from what I hear this week.
Yes, and y'all's offensive line, I was fairly impressed with watching in film prior to. Of course, I had the sample size of watching you guys against Oklahoma, but I did notice that y'all did a good job of standing up base very well. Y'all did a good job of pickups on blitzes. I thought the center guard combo to the right opposite of Kelvin, I don't know their names, but they had some breakdowns at times with different blitz patterns. But we pre-stemmed you guys and blitzed about 60% of the time, and a lot of times that's difficult because you live and die by that. We were fortunate in a lot of our blitz packages that we got to the quarterback so quickly. I mean, you had guys running open, you just didn't have time to find them and throw it to it. I know a couple of times with Arch in there midway through the second quarter, and then Quinn later on in the fourth quarter. In those situations as well. Even on that beautiful poetry-like stem when we ran I call it a splash cowboys, what I actually called it as a defensive coordinator, where you stem the tackles inside to B, bring the mic and the wheel through A, and go that route. But, you still had a guy wide open off of that sluggo concept, and there was a guy coming across on a dig that was wide open because of the leverage you had there, but he just didn't have time to throw the football. So that's the reason why I say you live and die by that. A good quarterback picks it up, runs through, dumps it off, and now you got a wide open guy running on the lateral going across to the opposite seam and going to score. So there's so many different intangibles about the game. That's what I love about football. It's such a game of poker, man, going against one another. And you just hope sometimes that when they throw something down that you call their bluff. And we tended to that pretty well on Saturday.
Well, as a guy who enjoys the game of poker quite a good bit, man, that's very well said. Kirby certainly called several bluffs there that we threw at him. Real quick, guys, going to have Mr. Chris Phillips of SEC Unfiltered join us. Welcome, Mr. Phillips. How we doing, my man?
Going on, y'all? What's going on? Howdy. Good to see you.
Hey, how's it going, Chris?
Doing well, man. How are you? Great to meet you.
It's great to meet you as well. I won't ever have a problem remembering your name because that's mine too.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Love that.
Two Chris's and a cord in here. We're doing all right. Chris, you guys work so hard. I try not to bother you too much. I love what you guys are doing. I love you personally, brother. But as soon as I saw the old predictions hit the timeline, I was like, you know what? I got to bug my guy. I got to get him on here for just.
Bro, you're never bugging me, man. It's always a pleasure to jump on. I'm excited to see you in Nashville, man. You already told this story a few nights ago, I think, but it's funny when we announced we were going to the Vandy Texas game, and you reached out and said you're going to be there, like with a question mark exclamation point. I thought you were mad that I was going. So that's why I said I was sorry, because of the run we've been on. And if Coach Hayes doesn't know what I'm talking about, the last 3 games, really the last 4 games I've been to, the home underdog has won each of them. In the last 3 games I've been to in a row, the home underdog has won, and we have rushed the field. So we are on a unprecedented streak to where your favorite team, if they're on the road, they don't want to see us coming. They don't want to see us coming. So listen, we'll see if it holds up. I went ahead and made the Vandy pick. I took the Commodores to shot the college football world yet again. And I tell you this, man, to your point, you guys were talking Texas, Georgia. I'm really, hindsight's 20/20, but I was kicking myself for not giving the Dogs more of a chance. I had Texas by double digits, and our entire staff did. And I had this pit in my stomach when we did that, because I was like, it's still Kirby Smart. It's still Georgia. I know they've looked less than stellar the last couple of weeks, but there's just nobody better in the country than getting his team ready to go and playing a game like that than Kirby. And it's, again, hindsight's 20/20, but Texas hadn't faced a test like that. So now we're going to find out if Texas can get up off the mat, rebound the right way. This is their first SEC road trip. I don't care if it's to Vandy or not. First time they've gone on the road in the conference, and we'll see. We'll see. I mean, they're 18-point favorites for a reason, but Bama was 22-point favorites, and look what happened. So, I mean, this year's crazy. So, but I'm excited to see you, Ghost. You never bother me, man. It's always a pleasure.
Oh, I love what y'all are doing, man. Y'all are all over the place. I like what y'all are doing with TSU. They're Texas Sports Unfiltered. You guys are with them daily.
That's why BK. So I don't know if you noticed this, Ghost. I went on with BK this morning.
Yes, sir.
I filled in for Bucky. He was he had a little carpal tunnel procedure going on. But that was the lead topic of conversation. BK kind of grilled me for about 30 minutes on that Vandy pick. So I've already done this once today, so I think I'm ready to stand on my pick yet again. So
well, no, I'm just here to ask a few questions, my good friend. If Vandy does pull off that upset, if there is a 4th straight field rushing witnessed by you, Mr. Chris Phillips, what went wrong for Texas? Where did we see the horns go wrong that led to that upset?
Well, I think a couple things. I think number one, if Texas allows Vandy to jump out to a lead, I think that's the path to victory for Vanderbilt. I think they need to strike first. You saw it in the Alabama game. I think it would need to be something similar, right? I think Vanderbilt playing from behind, if Texas can get up 10-0, 14-0, 14-3 early, it's going to make it really difficult for Diego Pavia and Tim Beck and what they want to do offensively. I think they want to win time of possession again.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Yeah, they won that 47-13, I believe was the number in that game against Alabama. They want to play keep away. They obviously want to use Pavia in that little option game they run and have him in the run and the pass. But they don't want to throw it 35, 40 times a game. So if they obviously get behind, it's going to demand him to throw the football. They're not going to be able to nickel and dime you to death. They're going to have to take some shots. So I think for Texas, they'll have lost time of possession. I think they will have obviously turned the football over. I think Quinn Ewers will have been sort of like we've seen the last couple of games. We're just not quite he won't be Michigan Quinn. He'll be kind of, again, what we've seen the last couple of games, a little bit rusty, just we've seen him in spots like this be turnover prone, if you will. So I think probably a pick or two for Quinn. And I mean, it'll take another game where Diego Pavia just balled out. He's going to be essentially more than human, kind of like, again, he was in that Alabama game making every single play. I think it's probably going to take a defensive or special team score for the Vanderbilt Commodores to win the game. They had the pick 6 against Alabama. So, I think the path is very similar of what will have to happen. But, I mean, starting specifically with Quinn Ewers, if Quinn Ewers doesn't play well, Vanderbilt's in the football game. We're going to the fourth quarter with a football game. Yep. And if you tell me that, coming off that game against Texas, I still don't know if he's truly 100% healthy. Do they go to Arch at any point? Like, if you're telling me that there's some there's some that the quarterback position doesn't excel in this game. Like, I don't think that's the craziest take in the world. I just need to see it, right? I need to see it. And I know it's in there and it's possible. I mean, we saw this guy go to Michigan and just slice and dice the Wolverines defense. And I think that's still one of the best defenses, personnel wise in the country. So they're capable, but I just don't like, is Quinn going to get back to himself? I just don't know that he is. And again, I don't question this team as far as getting up and like being excited and motivated. Again, you just got punched in the face by Georgia. They should be ready to rally around each other and play their best, put their best foot forward. But still, it's a lot to kind of pick. That was an emotional game. There was a lot of emotions in that ball game, a lot of emotions in that building. And so to pick yourself up and, go on the road and kind of a sleepy environment at Vanderbilt, the capacity is 28,000. I read some Ghost. This is the least amount of people Texas will have played in front of since 1995 when they played SMU in the Cotton Bowl, and there were 25,000 people there. So, I mean, you couple all that together, and again, it's going to take a little bit of a perfect storm. I will admit very quickly, I'm going out on a limb here. Obviously, I'm banking a little bit on the SEC Unfiltered Tour, and I want to make it clear, I'm not pulling for Vanderbilt. I don't want Texas folks to think I'm going into this game pulling for the Commodores, but there's something in the air of this college football season. And also, too, Ghost, how many times in our lifetime am I going to have the opportunity to pick Vanderbilt to beat Texas where it makes even a 1% of sense?
Right.
So I'm pushing my chips all into the middle of the table, seeing if I can roll a 7, and we're just seeing what happens. But, dude, either way, man, whether it's Vandy pulls the most incredible upset we've seen or Texas wins by 30, we'll be together on Broadway, man, having a good time.
Yeah.
Either way, but yeah, there's a checklist for sure of things that have got to happen for Vandy. I'd say the top 2, they've got to win time of possession, and they've got to jump out to a lead. I think if they don't do those 2 things, I don't really know that there's much else that matters beyond that.
No, I think that's very well said, man. Texas has been a very slow starting football team. You go all the way back to Mississippi State, Oklahoma, Georgia. Obviously, hey there, buddy. Welcome back.
What's up, Randy?
My man. Always checking in. Congrats again, you guys. Last time I'm congratulating your butts on a big win over Texas on Saturday, but you've got it now. Okay. But I mean, I am worried about the type of start that we have. I am worried about whether Quinn is healthy or not. We've talked about that a little bit before you joined us tonight, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
I don't blame you for picking Vanderbilt to win. I think Texas will win because I think we'll get a very, very plus performance from the offensive line and the defense will stand up. But I'm still nervous, man. That's not an easy, like you said, it's not an easy get right game. Going on the road to Nashville, not as easy as it used to be. Shout out Alabama.
I think folks Ghost would be giving Vandy more of a chance to win it straight up had they not already beaten Alabama. And it's just, I think people just cannot wrap their brains around the thought that, Vandy could beat Bama and Texas in the same season. I mean, that just, it's not supposed to happen. You know what I mean?
Isn't it great, though, for college football, though, this year, what we're seeing in the SEC play with the addition of Oklahoma, obviously, in Texas, and seeing seeing some of these teams in the East as well that are no longer obviously divided by the East and West, but watching South Carolina play very good ball, watching what LSU is doing, obviously Texas A&M, those things as well. It's just great for college football, especially for the SEC, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, it's, on that note, I mean, I think going into this season, I was really curious about the parity and would the transfer portal and NIL kind of result in, the rich get richer, the top 5 or 10% of teams, kind of like a Texas, kind of like a Georgia, like they're just able to kind of stockpile all the talent and everybody else is sort of serving as these feeder programs. And it's the opposite. I think what we're seeing is that, schools like Texas and Georgia and Alabama, they're not able to stockpile the depth they used to, and guys are going elsewhere and playing. And it is kind of evening out a little bit the playing field. So, I mean, listen, we're probably still at the end of the year, the short list of teams that can win the national championship. I would say from the SEC, Georgia, Texas, maybe LSU if they really get hot. And I think they've got the personnel. They could maybe make it happen. But the point is that list is still only going to be about 5 or 6 teams long. I mean, realistically, that can realistically win a national championship. But to your point, we are seeing, I mean, the craziness. I don't think it's by accident. I think it's because of as frustrating as it is in the golf season. The portal and NIL and the talent dispersion, kind of it's evening itself out a little bit. It is good for the game. I mean, I tell people all the time, guys, that it's never, and y'all can tell me if you think I'm right here, but I feel like it's never been a worse time to be a diehard fan of the game, but it's never been a better time for the business of college football and for people like us that make content and just love the game. And I'm speaking, by the way, from a space of, not only the Georgias, the Texases, but you got to think about the fans of the Mississippi States, the Arkansas, the Kentuckys, the South Carolinas, where it's like they're just fighting almost at times what feels like an impossible battle with NIL portal. So, like, maybe for them, I'm more so talking about for 90%, 95% of the schools, it's a difficult time to be a fan because you never know who's going to be on your roster. But for the business of college football, just the overall product, I mean, I don't think it's ever been better.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you right there. And real quick before I touch on one topic, Gage, I think I can help you with this one. Chris will be with the rest of the SEC Unfiltered guys. You'll be at the Kentucky game, correct, in Austin?
That's we will be in Austin for the Kentucky game. I'm trying to decide right now if I'm flying in Thursday or Friday. I think I'm gonna try to do a Thursday and just get the full weekend experience in Austin. And what I'm working on right now, Ghost, is this will not be the only Texas game I'm at. What I'm working on right now is the final weekend of the year being in College Station. So
we're gonna have a few weekends together coming up, my man. This is great news to hear.
I just, I felt like, man, if you're gonna go to College Station and if you're gonna go to a game on rivalry weekend, I mean, and I feel like too that's probably gonna be the last stop of the SEC Unfiltered tour. I thought about, and who knows, it's TBD. We might throw the SEC championship game in there, but we also might do like a live stream watch along or some different kind of content. But
yeah.
I don't know, man. If we go to Texas A&M, and it's a thriller like we all expect, and it's a classic, like I feel like that might kind of be the perfect way to cap it off, So
you haven't been to Kyle Field yet, correct?
Oh, I have, and so that was the funny thing. So Coach Hayes, it was after I was at the Tennessee Bama game this past weekend, rushed the field. Mm-hmm. I had LSU fans in my DMs begging me not to go to Kyle Field because, again, the home team has been winning all the games I've been at. They were begging me not to go. So didn't go to Kyle Field. It also just made sense because I was like, when am I going to get to see a top 25 Vandy team ever again?
Yeah.
And, also opportunity to see Texas. So, I mean, yeah, I think it worked out pretty well.
Yes. Let me tell you this, man. If you can make November 30th happen, you make it. You need to make it happen, man. It's going to be.
I think we're going to be able to. I mean, I think because I mean, I'm fully prepared to drop a bag on a ticket. I really am. But you know what's crazy? I looked today at the tickets. Ghost, the cheapest ticket that I could get, it's only like $120 more than I paid for Georgia Bama. So I mean, I'm just doing that again. So. Yeah. I don't think that'll be an issue. I might be in the top, but I'll be in the building. So it's if anybody
matters.
They'd like to sell for like cash, I'd be more than happy to take advantage. So
there we go. Let's see what we can do for you. But that's the thing. I think, when the hype came out, the tickets first came out in the spring and everybody's talking about them. I know several Aggie families, season ticket holders who were like, we're going to offer these for 3 times what they're worth. And we'll see if anybody takes them. And if not, we'll go to the game so there are some crazy prices out there. Yes, indeed. It's pretty wild, but I don't think it's more extreme than what Texas and Georgia just were. That those tickets were off the charts, next level. I don't think that's
Georgia Bama was the same, man. It was yeah, they were crazy. But again, if it's anything like that environment, which I know it will be, and especially too if we've God forbid A&M beats LSU and Texas rebounds and keeps rolling, we might be in with a game with a lot on the line. And I mean, who knows? Maybe it's Texas A&M 2 weeks in a row, which would really be something. So
as much as I just hate playing those guys strictly because of nerves, you don't want to lose to them. We lost to them in volleyball last night. It's been a miserable 24 hours.
Yeah, BK was telling me he was annoyed by that. He was very upset by that.
I love Texas volleyball. Absolutely. My daughters are both volleyball girls, and we watch Texas volleyball all the time. My wife's an Aggie. So we normally watch those matchups, and 80 game home win streak, undefeated in SEC play. A lot of things ended last night for Texas.
Wow.
Now I understand.
Had 3 match points in a row to end it and just couldn't get it done. But point is, playing those guys 2 weeks in a row, my Lord, the stress levels for the state of Texas football fans, it would be next level, man. Chris, do you have another 10 minutes or so to hang out with us, talk a little bit of LSU and A&M?
Yeah, for sure, man. I heard that you're I heard through the grapevine, Ghost, you're going with the Aggies.
I took, on the timeline, I did make that 24-23 Texas A&M prediction. I wouldn't bet.
Have you flipped on that?
I wouldn't put money on that. These are just the fun predictions that I make for all the big games. I think it's a coin flip game, could go either way. Kind of similar to last week with Georgia and Texas. I had that one really, really close. Mr. Austin, if we go back-to-back L's, you're not welcome back on the channel because we're about to smoke Vanderbilt, buddy. I don't care what Mr. Phillips says.
I mean, I'm kind of nervous, low key, Ghost, because again, when I was having this combo with BK, he did hint at the fact that he's like, yeah, if your tour hex curse thing comes through, yeah, we might fire you. So he's like, there'll be some people on this channel that want you fired. So
now I know why you're not actually rooting for Vanderbilt.
Yeah, I'm like,
get up to Nashville.
I don't know. This is a dangerous game we're playing. So Coach Hayes, I want to hear your A&M LSU. Who you got in that game? A&M LSU.
Well, I'm looking at the fact of we're hoping that A&M can finish up their schedule, but I mean, who knows with them going to South Carolina, I believe, and they have to go to Auburn as well, man. And I know Auburn's not playing good ball this year, but man, there are some kind of voodoo magic going on at Jordan-Hare Stadium, man. Watching us play there over the years, you know how they've come out and just play the ball game of their life, even though their offense has been struggling, but they just tend to play well at home. So if they can make it out of those two games, and I say South Carolina too, because it's also in Columbia. So I think that when you look at, it's a night game. So you end up, and they play a solid defense. I think their defense is outstanding. But anyhow, if you can make it through that, I think when you get, are you talking about Texas A&M and LSU? I'm sorry, or was it Texas A&M and Texas?
A&M LSU, the game this weekend.
The game this weekend. Well, then I just completely prefaced something that didn't matter. Basically, I think what you see in Texas A&M, how they have rebounded since the loss against Notre Dame, and you see what LSU's been doing as well, rebounding since the USC loss. It's, to me, they got two teams that's going to execute better, and they're going to carry out, just like you were talking about, what Vandy has to do, sort of the cocktail that they're going to have to kind of create in order to upset Texas. But it's the same thing. I really do think whoever executes the most offensively as well as defensively and special teams, all phases of the game, you're probably going to see them come out. So I'm going to say it's going to be within a touchdown. I want to say something like it just feels like 27-20 or 27-21. But I think Texas A&M wins, being at home. Kyle Field, obviously, I know the home of the 12th man, but, a lot of times I've realized that it seems to me Kyle Field doesn't seem to always be the home of the 12th man. I don't really think that's the reason why. I just think Texas A&M will, Connor Wegman has shown what he can do, and I think he's improved every week. Obviously, from an LSU standpoint, they've improved every week, playing pretty solid defense. But I just think the home field advantage is going to be the key that brings them over the top. So I'm saying you're looking within 6 to 7 points, 27-21, 27-20, Texas A&M.
I do agree with you. I think it's a really evenly matched game. I think these two teams, in a lot of ways, mirror each other. I'm really excited to watch. It's funny. I felt like I was saying this going into the LSU Ole Miss game as well, and I was at that one and got to see that in person. But the battle in the trenches, LSU's offensive line led by Will Campbell taking on Texas A&M front seven. Will Campbell, low-key, guys, has become – I don't know if he's my favorite player in the SEC, but definitely my favorite offensive lineman. I don't know if y'all saw the Instagram live after the I think it was it may have been after the Arkansas game when he said, I'll put you in that seatbelt.
Yeah.
B word. I don't know if we can say that on here. But, he said, I'll put you in that seatbelt. Those Louisiana boys got a little sauce to them. Look at Whit Weeks, Will Campbell. They got a little extra seasoning. But no, so I love the way they play up front, man. I mean, I know the running game has struggled a little bit, although they did run the ball over Arkansas. But pass pro, I think if there's anybody that can slow down the Shamars, Nick Scorton, Torian York at linebacker, like when you have an offensive line like LSU has, you give yourself a chance to win a lot of football games. So I think they've got enough weapons on the outside to win some one-on-ones with Texas A&M secondary, which I think is still kind of, if you're looking at the weakness of the defense or the area you can attack them, I think that's it. On the other side of the football, I mean, I love what I've seen from Blake Baker's defense. And it's just, for me, like, what Connor Wigman are we getting? It's he's masterful in the Mizzou game. And I know we've talked about this previously. And I give Mike Elko so much credit for having the stones to make that move and bench Marcel Reed, a guy who had won multiple games in a row. And that could have just blew up in his face. And Connor Wigman goes out there, makes him look really smart, played really well. Last week against Mississippi State, he was okay. It kind of felt like he regressed a little bit. So it's just kind of, really, truly the question, what version of him do you get? And then on the other side, man, the quarterback position, Garrett Nussmeier, it's just, can he avoid the catastrophic mistake?
Right.
He got away with him against South Carolina because a couple penalties that, again, I think were the right calls. But either way, the plays were still made. He had some throws against Ole Miss, guys. It's crazy. Again, being there in person, it was like he has some throws where you're like, man, this guy could be a Heisman Trophy contender. And then he has some throws where you're like, I don't know what he's looking. Like, I don't know what he's looking at. Like, but you know what? To be fair, I've seen other quarterbacks make those same throws. Again, I saw Carson Beck in the first half against Bama make just baffling decisions and then turn around and nearly beat them. So, I mean, it happens. But, again, for Garrett Nussmeier, it's just about we know what the ceiling is when he plays his best. It's just can he bring the floor up? You know what I mean? Bring the floor up, limit the mistakes. And these two teams, again, so evenly matched across the board. I do think, to oversimplify it, whichever quarterback plays better, makes smarter decisions, doesn't turn the football over, that's probably going to be the team that wins the football game. So
I was going to ask you too, though, from Texas A&M's perspective, what I've noticed over the years when they seem to play very well is they have a very good balance, both running to passing. And, Le'Veon Bell is, I know their horse. And, to me, if they establish a good ground game, I think that's what helps Connor Wegman out in that process too. So, I'm really interested to see if they can establish a ground game. It's very similar to what we're talking about with the Georgia-Texas. Texas was playing catch up so much, they really couldn't try to establish a ground game, just like we couldn't against Alabama with Trevor Etienne because we were having to play catch up the majority of the game. So it's one of those things. I think if you can balance it out, I think that's where Texas A&M ends up. Like I said, I love that matchup because I love good line play. I love good offensive, defensive line play. And I think LSU brings, their front five is phenomenal. Like you said, Campbell over there at left tackle. And but anyhow, I just think if Texas A&M can establish a good running game, that will be where we'll probably see Wegman's success throwing the football because there's better balance.
Yeah, I think for sure A&M wants to. I think A&M wants to come out there and punch LSU in the face. I mean,
absolutely.
I think that's the mentality of a Mike Elko coach team. I think they're obviously, they're taking on his identity, which is, again, toughness and physicality and discipline. So I think to your point, which of these two teams can find more balance? LSU, outside of last week, has not run the football well, and it's been kind of puzzling with that offensive line. Like they're so great in pass pro, and then Caden Durham's been really good back there for them. But outside of that, they just haven't been able to establish a consistent ground game. And so to your point, I think that's a big key as well. To get to the pick, man, I lean LSU in this game, and I'm taking LSU. I trust LSU more in this spot. I still think with Texas A&M, it feels like we're putting the cart before the horse just a little bit.
Yeah.
It's kind of like A&M was very shoddy up until the Mizzou game.
Yes.
And then they had this breakout performance. And, I mean, they ran Mizzou out of the building. And then they followed it up with the Mississippi State game. So it's like there's, we got a pretty large sample size. And, like, they've had one breakout game. And everything else has just been kind of clunky. I'm like, I'm not totally sold that the Mizzou game A&M is, who they really are. I just – so maybe listen, this is probably just me being skeptical of A&M because I've been burned by them so many times. But again, LSU, veteran football team, they've been in this position. They know what this stage is like. I trust them more than I trust A&M to get the win. I think they go into Kyle Field and blackout and all. I think they overcome all that and get it done.
I do. Chase Wasanchis, A&M starting tackle, he'll miss this game. So Aggie offensive line. I don't know if you saw that injury report yesterday.
Oh, I see it now.
Close. I will say to your point, though, Coach Hayes, close game. I think like a 27-24. Like, I think it is I took LSU +3. I mean, listen, if LSU covered on +3 and they lost by 3, I wouldn't be shocked. I think it's going to be that kind of game.
Yes, agree.
I'm with you all there on that one. I think it's a coin flip either way. Very, very tight game. Like you said, running the football is going to go a long way in this one. Caden Durham's looked good for the LSU Tigers. Le'Veon Moss has looked good for the Aggies at times. But
to the point real quick of what Coach Hayes said, man, it is games like this that, man, it's just as a football fan, you get excited to watch because with all due respect to the rest of the SEC, and everybody can beat everybody, and that's true. But when you watch these teams like LSU, A&M, like when I watch Georgia, Bama in person, when you watch Georgia, Texas, like, man, it's just when you watch those battles, those car crashes in the trenches.
Yep.
It's fun. I mean, it's different. It's just it's different.
Yep.
The level of play is different. It really is. Like, even if with due respect, who I picked this weekend, even if a Vandy or a South Carolina or a Mississippi State or a whoever, can give you trouble and compete. Like, when you get these big time premier matchups, man, it hits different. I don't know how else to put it. It hits different, man. It hits different. So I'm super excited for the game.
I was going to say, shout out to the Green Soldier, Scott, one of my good buddies. Appreciate you coming in here with us and hanging out with us. The one thing as a coach perspective too is I learning skill positions and being position coaches. The best thing that ever made me become a coordinator is learning defensive and offensive line play. Once you learn that property on both sides and understand the geometry, I mean, I hate to say that, but it's really just a game of angles, working on and being just mean as a SOB than the other person you're lined up against, and being able to be smart to communicate with guys that are working together like a chain link fence. When I got to know and understand the defensive line and the offensive line, that made me the better coach that I could be also too when I was coaching ball over that time. So to me, that's where everything is established. If you've got a better offensive line that's wrecking the defensive line, and you can establish a good ground game, work on your pass pro, give your quarterback time to throw, it's a successful night, 99.9% of the time. And so that's the reason why I'm excited to see those clashes like you're talking about, what I call flatheads, where you just see train wrecks happening over and over and over again and see who can dominate and win their box.
Coach, are you familiar with the name Brad Lawing? Have you ever heard that name before?
I have.
Okay, so he coached he coached under Nick Saban at Michigan State.
Michigan State. That's where I've heard that name. Yes.
Coached at South Carolina under Steve Spurrier. He coached at Florida State under Jimbo Fisher.
Yes.
So my previous venture was a South Carolina entity, and so I got to know Brad Lawing very well. I actually went to his house a couple times and did some in-person combos. Again, a legendary defensive line coach, and unfortunately he passed away about a year and a half ago. We lost Brad, but anyway, I was a college baseball player, so when I learned so much from him. Listening, fans think a pass rush is, hey, ball is snapped, I'll race you to the quarterback. That's pretty much it.
Right.
You talk about the geometry. Listening to him, and he went deep dive with me. Listening, because he coached Jadeveon Clowney, like those defensive lines at South Carolina, the best in school history. And he would talk to me about the way, he said, if I knew which way your center was going, I could put this guy, take this guy, it's a science. Like it is. And he knew every pain point on the body where you put that elbow in a guy or and it's just like, dude, it was fascinating listening to him talk about like the art of the pass rush. I was like, I could sit here for hours, dude. It's just like crazy. Like, it's just stuff you would never. I'll tell you a funny story real quick if we got time.
Of course.
I don't know if you remember the name Clifton Geathers played at South Carolina. He was like a 6'6"
Geathers
monster. He played in the NFL.
So
he was recruiting him, and he said when he was in high school, he was a really tame, timid kid, right? Like he was a huge, like good football player, really timid. He was like, Chris, I needed to see if he had that in him, like if he had it in him to play at this level. So he said he had his mom bring him out to a camp or something, or out to the field at South Carolina, and he told him, he said, Clifton, I'm going to give you my best, jab or whatever, pass rush, whatever. I'm going to give you my best move, and I want you to, counter it or whatever. He said he just reared up and punched him square in the chest, hard as he could, just hard as he could, because he wanted to see how he'd react. And he said, like, his eyes, like, got red and, like, basically tears came up. And Clifton essentially was about to, like, beat his ass. And he stopped and he was like, that's all I wanted to see. We're offering you a scholarship. He's like, I just want to know if somebody punches you in the face, are you going to be – he's like, once I saw he was about to kick my ass, I was like, I knew he had that. Like, it's just like really cool stories, man. Like, really, really cool stories. And he also told me a lot of stories about the way they used to recruit back in the day. And NIL might be a thing now, but it's been around quite a long time.
Yeah, definitely.
In a while, like
in all SEC country, I think that they've been.
Oh yeah, $100 handshakes have existed for a long time. But no, it's listening to him talk about the pass rush, man, the art of the pass rush, the pain points on the body, the way if you know the way the center's going. He talked about the 2012 South Carolina Clemson game where Jadeveon Clowney had 4.5 sacks. He was like, I just knew where that center, I knew he was going all night. He's like, I could put Clowney on whatever side. I could take Kelsey Quarles at the nose, and it just blow your mind, dude. Like, and he's like, I was like, how do you learn? He's like, you got to. He said we'd watch like 7-8 hours of film. Like, Sunday we'd watch film all day and just watch their O line and watch their giveaways, and it's just
it's all about
football.
It's all about the influence. I was telling Ghost on the last show we were on, I got the chance to sit in Florida State when we went to a football camp. Mark Rick was just up at Georgia, and our head coach was from Florida State. He had done some grad assistant work there, and he was our head coach. We went back down, and I got a chance to sit in the defensive coordinator's room with Mickey Andrews for like 2 hours. This was back when Bobby Bowden and them were still there, when they were very stellar on defense. The Tampa 2, cover 2, robber coverage was their big deal back then. And just to get in there and sit there and pick his brain and help him understand, it's all about leverage points. If I can take one technique and slide him across the center's face and make him go oppo A gap and bring a backer off of that butt where he just left from into that other A gap, and the guard's influenced by a 3 technique, it's amazing how you can all of a sudden shift somebody to go the way you want them to bring somebody through free. And if you're not disciplined enough, you've got free run to the quarterback. That's the beauty of the game. That's what I love about it, and it's what I loved about with coaching too.
It's like you talked about before Chris joined, it's a big poker match essentially. And some guys are really, really dang good at it. And you see that sometimes. So appreciate you sharing that, Chris. That's a great story from back in the days with Brad Long. Say it again.
Yeah, Coach Brad Lawing, man. Like I said, his career, I think he got his start at Appalachian State back in like the 80s. Like I said, he coached under some of the best, man. Nick Saban, Jimbo Fisher, Steve Spurrier. He was actually under Will Muschamp at Florida.
Yeah, at Florida.
Who, one of the best defensive minds. I mean, funny story about Muschamp real quick at Florida. He told me that he said that Kurt Roper was the OC at Florida when he was there. And he was like, Chris, he was like, I mean, it was, the offenses were not good.
No.
and essentially, that they have the offensive coaches and defensive coaches, and all the coaches talk every week. And he said he'd come to him like, hey, Brad, can you hold them under 20 this week? He's like, yeah. And he'd come next week. Can you hold them under 14? He's like, hey, can you hold them to 10? He's like, I mean, are y'all going to score? Like, and then, it's, he's obviously the line coach, the defensive coordinator, depending on strengths, weaknesses. I think Ellis Johnson at South Carolina asked him, he's like, hey, Brad, can you get there? Can you get there with 4 this week? Like, yeah, can you get there with 3? He's like, I got to ask if I could get there with 2 one week. He's like, believe it or not, Chris, he's like, I knew how to get there with 2. He was like, it was, we had to have the right, but I could get there with 2. He's like, I'm telling you, man, it was, I'm not the biggest football nerd in the world. Like I said, I'm a baseball player at heart. I do love the game of football, but I could listen to him. It was like listening to your grandpa, man, like sitting around he's sitting on the rocker and you're just sitting on the floor as a kid. Like just, you know what I mean? It was really cool, man. Like I said, we lost Brad last year, and I'm just grateful that I had the opportunity to sit down with him. Those are memories I'll cherish forever, man. It was really awesome.
Well, rest in peace, Coach. Definitely some cool intel right there. It is a science, my man, and
probably definitely the coolest man cave I've ever seen. By the way, his house, just dude, he had helmets from all of his coaching stops, and they were from like the years he was there.
Right.
So he had an App State helmet from like 1988. I was like, this is sick, man. Like, I'm a uni guy. Like, it was very cool, man. Very, very cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all about memorabilia. I see the Masters flag. I've been jealous for the last half hour.
Dude, I literally went there this year. So that's from this year. Yeah, it's I'm hoping to, like I said, maybe on my Texas trip, man. I've been collecting some stuff as I've gone. Hopefully I'll add some Texas stuff or something Texas in here.
I'm more concerned with you bringing the sticks with you on the Texas trip so we can get out there, man.
I mean, I'll have to get like the ship sticks. I've never done that, but dude, if we're gonna play golf, then I'll definitely we'll have to talk after this. Maybe I can fly out sooner and we'll Yeah, I'd love to play golf.
I could take you on a little tour down here of the South Austin area. There's some fun little hill country scenes, a couple of big elevation changes, mixed with kind of the desert layout. So it's fun over here.
Love that, man. Love that.
But
my only experience in Texas is Dallas, so I need to see more.
Mine too.
Sorry, gentlemen. I apologize. Nothing wrong with Dallas. Dallas is a good area. I like it down here a little better, but I grew up just east of Dallas, so a lot of love for that area. And shout out to the old Texas Rangers, who are still technically the defending World Series champions here for another week, 10 days, however long this World Series plays out. But guys, I appreciate everybody listening tonight. Had a good fun in the comments. Appreciate you guys being in there. Throw a like on this video, Chris. Appreciate you taking the time. Coach, thanks for taking your time. Talking little X's and O's, man. We got to figure out what's going on with that Texas offense and kick things back into high gear so we can prove Mr. Phillips wrong about Saturday, guys. Gentlemen, thank you. Any last words before we get you out of here?
It was great talking to you, meeting you, Coach.
Yes, sir. Likewise.
And yeah, man, I'm looking forward to meeting you in person, man. Heck, we're gonna. You said you're getting in town like late tomorrow, so I'm sure Saturday we will run into each other. And yeah, dude, I'm excited, man. I'm excited for the weekend, so it's gonna be good.
Excited to see what happens this week. We're off. That's what's nice. I get to sit back with my chips and salsa and my wings and get a chance to watch a lot of good college football this weekend. But definitely be thinking about all my guys out there sweating BBs as these games are being played out this weekend.
Hopefully not sweating too hard. Coach, I just do have to ask, what's the go-to wing flavor up there?
I am one of those. I'm a sweet and spicy guy. You got to give me a little chili, a little sweet, like a teriyaki with a little spice to it, like an Asian zinger type stuff. I like that, man. I want it just a little hot, but I like the sweet to it too.
That's my type of coach right there. Well, guys, thank you again. Appreciate all you tuning in out there. Texas Vanderbilt this weekend, A&M, LSU, a couple of real fun SEC ball games.